Welcome to the monthly Consumer Issues program hosted by Cornell Cooperative Extension, Tompkins County. On the second Thursday of each month, we're joined by New York State Assistant Attorney General Michael Danaher, who makes a presentation on a topic of consumer interest. Today, he'll give us a presentation on consumer credit issues. After his presentation, Mr. Danaher will answer questions that viewers have submitted to CCE Tompkins in the Zoom chat box. This presentation also will be available on the CCE Tompkins YouTube channel and will be broadcast next month on Mondays on Public Access Channel 15. Thank you for joining us today. And now here is New York State Assistant Attorney General Michael Danaher with today's program.
Thank you, Sandy, and good morning, everyone. Those of you that are watching us live, for those of you that are watching us via tape, then we hope that you had a very good holiday season. And we want to talk today about issues related to consumer credit transactions. And I think that's an appropriate time of year for us to be talking about this because people may have increased their credit over the course of the holidays, and they have to make arrangements to get it paid off. And so it's really appropriate to talk about how credit is used, how it's a good consumer should consider credit, and therefore can make good decisions before it's necessary for them to go out and get credit. We've talked about over many years here at Cornell Cooperative Extension about the United States, probably the entire world, is really a credit-based society now. A lot of the things that we buy on credit. And the outstanding amount of consumer credit debt is rising. I just saw statistics. There was a report this past week from Bloomberg that consumer borrowing from November of 2021, which was the last month that they had available, reported that it increased month over month. So from October to November, it increased by $40 billion. That means that consumers increased over their credit from October of 2021 an amount of $40 billion. And it was the largest increase in history of credit being accessed, made up of two components. One is revolving credit, and that's the credit that just kind of keeps going on. It goes up, it goes down. And those are typically your credit card transactions. You buy on your credit card, you pay it off, or you pay off a portion of it. And as we'll discuss, all credit card debt is a loan. It's a loan from a financial institution to pay what you just bought last month, and that you now have to pay that loan back over a period of time. The idea with revolving credit is that credit, again, goes up and goes down. You pay it off, or you pay some of it off, and then you add more the next month, and then you pay that off, and it just revolves. As compared to non-revolving debt, which is kind of your standard loan where you would go out like a car loan. Well, in November, the revolving credit increased by just under $20 billion at $19.8 billion. And non-revolving credit went up by $20.2 billion. Annualized over the year, it was estimated that consumer credit increased at a rate of 11%. So we can see how we are becoming more and more and more of a credit-based society. In fact, the report was, and maybe this is a good thing, that consumer spending, much of which was through debt, consumer debt, increased spending had returned to pre-pandemic levels. We had a big drop-off when the pandemic hit of consumer purchasing, and the statistics show that typically 70% of our economic development, economic spending over the years, over a year, is consumer debt. That's not consumer debt, but consumer spending fuels our economy to the extent of 70% every year. So it's good to see that consumer spending has returned to pre-pandemic levels. So kind of the downside of it is, those of you that saw the news today as we're taping this, if you've read the financial news or turned on the television, actually today, there were the lead reports on television this morning, is that that we have increased, the inflation has increased our spending, probably more than anything else. The inflation has really impacted all of us. I know that anyone that has recently been to the grocery store will be able to confirm that fact. My wife was actually mentioning this morning about how she went grocery shopping yesterday, and she was astounded at the total bill. And she said, I didn't really purchase anything too unusual than we would normally purchase, but the prices have really increased over the year. Over the last probably 6 months, it really has increased to where inflation is being reported as being the largest inflation since the early 1980s. So consequently, if we're purchasing by consumer credit using our credit cards or getting loans, that money that we're borrowing is purchasing a lot less. I just was reading an article this morning as well, the same time that the news was on television. There was a report in the Wall Street Journal about the double digit, meaning 30%, I think it was over 30% increase in used car prices because of the whole host of things contributing to inflation. Labor shortages, where they have to pay people to do work at higher rates, cost of goods and supplies, the limitation of the goods and supplies that are coming in, the delivery issues, bottlenecks at ports and things like that have all led to that. So I think this all adds together so that we really need to be aware of what our credit is and to protect our credit. Formerly, many things that might have been considered conveniences are now considered necessities. Things cost more. Computers, with computers and cars, they're interrelated in the fact that a lot of cars are very high tech now, and computers are tech. And so to get the chips, the memory chips that allow our cars to function, allow our computers to function, have had supply shortages, and therefore the prices have gone up. Credit frequently gives us convenience to buy things that we don't necessarily carry around cash as much anymore. I know I don't. I'll just whip out a credit card and pay the bill at the end of the month. So credit gives us convenience. It provides us with some safety. We don't have to carry a large amount of cash around. There's some protections with credit cards that we'll talk about that gives us some safety. I even have a story of a stupid credit card purchase that I made that I'm glad that I had the safety of a credit card purchase, because it'd be a lot easier to challenge the credit purchase than it would be to have to try to get my cash back after I spend it. Emergencies, sometimes we don't have the cash and there's an emergency, an auto repair, a medical bill, need to travel to visit a relative, that if we had credit available to us, that we didn't have to grab cash, that it would make it much more convenient and safe for us to use. Credit scams are often particularly difficult to recognize. Sometimes we don't recognize that we've been a victim of a scam involving our credit until a long time has elapsed. Many times we don't find out about the issue until weeks, months, or sometimes years later. And because it's something that is not in the forefront of our mind and we aren't looking toward it, we sometimes will not even find out about it until there's a point in time where we actually really need credit and we can't get it because our credit has been ruined through a fraud or a scam. And it can take a really long time to rectify and straighten out a problem with our credit. So it's really important that we be good consumers in the handling of our credit and the use of our credit. One of the big incidences of scams related to credit is something we talk about frequently here at our Consumer Issues program, and that is identity theft. By far, the largest fraud surrounding the use of credit is with identity theft. We oftentimes take our credit for granted. Oh, it's always there when we need it. We don't think about it a lot because it's one of those things that you don't really think about till you actually have to use it. You don't think about it ahead of time and say, hey, how's my good credit today? We get credit card applications all the time. We don't think about using it until we need it. For car loans, car repairs, new home purchases, we need credit for that unless you have cash to pay a house. Most people don't have that. Student loans now, people have. These are all types of things that when we go to get car loan, student loan, house loan, we find out we don't qualify, or we may qualify, but the interest rate that you receive, which is the cost of credit, is the interest that we have to pay on a loan. The interest rate may be higher because we haven't kept an eye on our credit and our credit has gotten to be bad. So how does this identity theft thing happen? Well, we've also become a more convenience-based society. And as a convenience-based society, we have less and less face contact. I think we'll all recognize that after having gone through the pandemic, where we're having less face-to-face interactions with people, much of the time for our own safety. And so we're making purchases online now. Everybody appears to be more comfortable in making purchases online. I do it all the time. And so because we do it all the time, we're much more comfortable doing it. We go to ATM machines or debit card machines to get cash. We don't have to go to the bank anymore and have a face-to-face interaction with our teller and our banking professionals. Therefore, we become very used to it. Our guard is down. We just routinely do these non-face-to-face transactions. How many people out there are going on the internet and ordering their groceries and they get delivered to the door? How many people are ordering their groceries and just driving up to the front of the store and somebody comes out and puts it in their car? Just less face-to-face contact. But in order to have that convenience of less face-to-face contact, we have to give up more and more of our personal information for this particular convenience. What is personal information? Our credit card numbers, obviously, our street address, our telephone numbers, our social security numbers, our dates of birth, our addresses, other insidious type of personal information, our mother's maiden names, our favorite colors, our first dog's name. All of those things are personal information that we may or may not have to give up in order for this particular convenience of being able to buy things without face-to-face contacts. Scam artists are now using that information. They're using that information that we might give to them over the internet or over the telephone to take out loans or get credit cards in our name using our personal information. We may never know that they have used this nefariously until we end up going to get credit or use a credit card and our credit card has been shut down. The bills get sent to a different address. They do address changes so that it doesn't come to us. We don't know about it. Nobody's calling us until you get that call. Hey, why haven't you paid this bill? And you're like, what bill? I don't know anything about a particular bill. And before you know it, your credit is ruined. This is where I have to stick in my story of stupidity. I've talked about this for over 24 years. This, in fact, happy anniversary, Cornell Cooperative Extension Consumer Issue Program. This is our 24th anniversary. I started doing this program 24 years ago in January. And we've been talking about this. But here I am, a professional in this sort of thing. I'll give you what happened to me last week. I'm using social media, and I've told you many times, you know my story. I'm more of a lurker than a poster, so you won't see me putting much stuff up. I just see what everybody else puts up. But I'm going through social media and I see, wow, there's this great deal for this thing. And I'm kind of aware of what a great deal would be for this thing. So I said, man, this is really a good deal. Now, what is rule number one that I tell you? I tell you, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Duh. I fell victim to it. It was too good to be true as I thought about it. The good thing for me is that I do have these warning lights. And the next day I said to myself, no, that thing really sounded too good to be true. Let me look into it. It was a posting of a brand name item that had the brand name there. It had the item there. It looked like a professional job that was done. The only thing that should have struck me and didn't strike me until the next day was, man, that's a really good deal. So what I do? I went for it. So I actually said to my wife, what do you think about this? And I showed it to her and she said, man, that looks really good. I said, yeah. What do you think? She said, yeah. So I went ahead and I did it. And I had to put in all the information that I typically would have to put in. And I didn't think twice about it. Credit card number, address, delivery address, the whole thing, telephone number. So I was thinking about it, and I said, I'm not so sure about this. So I looked into it a little bit more, and I said, I'm going to revert back to my business self, where I said to everybody like you out there, if it sounds too good to be true, I said, I'm going to cancel this deal. But not only am I going to cancel this deal, but I contacted my credit card company and said, look, I got a problem. I think this was bad. And I talked to the representative and we shut the card down. So I don't have use of that credit card anymore. It's going to be replaced. There's going to be a new credit card number and everything on it. So I think I got to it ahead of time. And then I found out afterward, when I called the credit card, the bank, you look at the 800 number on the back of your credit card, the customer service number, and I called that number and I spoke with the representative and I said to the representative, I've used this credit card recently and I made some purchases. So I want those purchases to go through. But there's this one that's really strange. As it turns out, this, by the way, the item that I purchased was from an American company and everything should be all American. And so we went through my purchases and she said, yeah, there was a purchase for gas here. I said, yeah, that's me. Purchase for gas here. Yeah. Here was parking. Yes, that was me. And then there was a purchase from a Chinese company. And I had no idea that this would have been dealing with a Chinese company at all. For the amount of what I paid. I said, yeah, that one's bad. That one I want canceled. And so the representative went ahead and said, okay, it's canceled and we'll issue you a new card. Again, I got drawn into it. I should have known better. I didn't. But if I can be duped into that sort of thing, I want you to know that you could have the same experience and that it's really important to, try and put that wise consumer hat on to make an informed and right decision for you. And always fall back to that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I don't know what ultimately will or would have happened as a result of that purchase, but I jumped on it quickly. That's another good consumer tip. I got on it right away, shut the card down before that card could have been used to make all other types of purchases, and stopped it. That would have been an example of identity theft, somebody taking my personal information, and I don't know if they would have, but this was to stop it, to go out and make other purchases, possibly take cash advances, those sorts of things. So stay on top of it and be a wise consumer. So scam artists go out, they may use your personal information to use your credit cards. In my case, they might have done that, take out loans in your name. So we need to protect ourselves. One, keep your private information private. Don't give out any of your personal information to someone that you don't know. Keep your credit card number and social security number information to yourself. Most importantly, know who you're dealing with. Don't be like me. Know who it was that you were dealing with. Make sure that you know who the company is. Make sure that you do your best to verify what it is that you're purchasing, and before you give out any of that information. Another very valuable tool, and one that I've used, is to get a periodic copy of your credit report. The law now allows, under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, it's been in effect for 15 years or 16 years, that we are all entitled to get a free copy of our credit report each year from each of the three major credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. All you have to do to get it is to go online to annualcreditreport.com. That's the website that's maintained by those three credit reporting agencies, and you can get it. You can actually get a copy of your credit report. You can actually get three. You can get one for each of the three credit reporting agencies. Look through that credit report. Make sure that everything that's on there is yours, and if it's not, get it off. If you are, so you're entitled to get a free copy yourself once a year. You're also entitled to get more copies if you'd like, which doesn't cost very much. I haven't checked the price lately. Last time I heard it was $10 or less to get a copy of your credit report, even outside of the free annual one. Make sure you review it. Contact the credit reporting agency and the creditor on the credit, who may show up on your credit report if it's not yours. Contact that creditor to have it shut down. If there is an unauthorized use of your credit card, the maximum charge that you can be charged is $50, but only if you take reasonable steps to notify the card issuer that this charge is not yours. So that it's very important that when your credit card bill comes in every month, that you look at it and you go through it and you make sure that every single charge on that credit card is yours. If you cannot verify that charge, contact the issuer, the person that the entity that charged you that amount, and your credit card company to challenge the charge. If you challenge the charge, the credit issuer has to go back and verify that it is a valid charge before it can actually go against you. If they are able to confirm that it was an appropriate charge, it will come back on your credit card. So in my instance, my example is I challenged that charge. The credit issuer in China, who I bought this item from apparently, could say, no, this is a valid charge. And then I would have the dispute to say, I didn't get that item, or I want it I never got it. It was an inappropriate charge. I want the charge canceled. And then we can resolve that ultimately. But at least it stops it for now and gives us the credit issuer a period of time to verify that it is a valid charge. The most common non-fraud issues that occur when consumers don't realize the costs associated with credit. So it's not necessarily with the use of credit, it isn't necessarily that there's a fraud occurring, but the most common issue that occurs is that people don't realize that there are actually costs associated with using the credit. For example, something we talked about earlier, and that is interest charges on credit cards. People don't realize that there's a cost to credit, and that's interest. When you go to get a loan to borrow $50,000 for a house, you have to pay that loan back with interest. That's the fee. The interest is the fee that we have to pay for borrowing that $50,000. And some people don't understand that interest is being charged, as well as other costs and fees that might be associated with that loan or credit. Some things such as on your credit, there may be minimum payments. You have to make a minimum payment on that outstanding debt. And you see that on credit cards. You'll see when you get the credit card bill, the bill is $250. You have to pay $32.15, a minimum payment. If you don't make that minimum payment, there's also fees associated with it for not making the payment. And that could be $30 more. So you'd have to pay the interest on the loan, the credit card, plus the $30 because you didn't make the minimum payment. And also understand that the interest payment is based on the balance of your loan, and that to buy that item that you bought for $100, let's say, if you don't pay that $100 off immediately, you have to continually pay interest until it's ultimately paid off. So that $100 item could end up costing you a lot more than $100 if you don't pay it off. So if you don't make the timely payments, you could get hit with fees. And you need to think about payments, any other fees associated with it, what happens if you don't make the payment, how much of the minimum monthly payment goes toward actually reducing the debt. It just depends. How much of that $32 goes toward reducing that $100 debt, and how much of it is of interest? So if I'll just grab a number, if that $32 is $22 of it is interest, your debt after you pay the $32, you'll owe $90 the next month out of $100. You pay $32 and you reduced your $100 debt to $90. And it goes that way throughout the life of the loan. We have to understand that. And then we have to understand what the interest rate is. So to borrow money, whether it's through a credit card or just going to a loan from the bank, you have to understand three things. What's the interest rate? How long what is the payment I have to make each month? And for how long? When you take into those things and the amount of the original debt, those are the things, 4 things. Those are the factors. What a lot of us do, and I consider to be those who are really not seasoned in the use of credit, the only thing they think about is the minimum payment or the monthly payment. Let's take a car loan. What can I afford? A lot of people don't think, well, I can afford $35,000. What they think about is, I can afford $370 a month. That's what I can afford. If all you are focused on is the monthly payment, you can cause you significant credit issues. or significant bank account issues, because what you pay over the life of the loan could be significantly different for one person that pays $370 a month compared to the other person who's paying $370 a month. Because the other factors come into play. How much did you borrow? What is the interest rate? And over what period of time does it have to be paid? Those are the three things that you need to focus on. Because when you focus on those three things, the total amount that you pay over the whole life of the loan will take care of itself. And there could be a vast difference for the $370 a month if you stretch it, if you have a higher interest rate and you stretch it over a longer period of time. So you need to account for all three of those things. And I'll give you an example. If you borrow $35,000 to pay off a car, you will be given several options of how to pay that back. One would be pay it back over 60 months. Pay it back over 36 months. Pay it back over 60 months. Pay it over 72 months. I'm hearing car loans can get stretched out to, I think, like 8 years now. Where it used to always be, it was 3 to 5 years that you had to pay it back. Now they're just stretching those out longer. But all that does is it makes the money that you have outstanding that you owe to someone owed for a longer period of time. And what does that do? That also causes you to have to pay more money to the person or entity that let you borrow the money. And therefore, the total dollars that you pay can be thousands and thousands of dollars more. If you increased your monthly payment $50 a month, that could save you thousands of dollars over the course of a loan. So what you need to sit down to is say, how much can I afford in total? Okay, I'm going to borrow $35,000. How quickly can I pay that back? Because at whatever interest rate I'm paying, might be 5%, 6%. Those with bad credit could have much higher interest rates, could cost you a lot of money over the life of the loan. So don't just focus on the monthly payment. Focus on how much you're borrowing, how much are you going to pay back. You can actually use the computer now and find out how much you're paying back. So let's say you take $35,000 and you borrow it at 4%. If you pay that 4% back to the bank over 3 years, how much is your interest rate? Or how much is your monthly payment? You can actually there's actually websites you can go to and put in the numbers. You put in the number, how much you're borrowing, what the interest rate is, and put in 36 months for 3 years. Click, how much do I have to pay each month? Okay, I'll change that. Let me change it to 60 months. I change it to 60 months. How much will I have to pay? If I change it to 72 months, how much will I have to pay? The other thing you can also do is you can get a thing called an amortization schedule, which is a schedule that shows the payback of a loan over 36 months, 60 months, 72 months, whatever period of time you do it, 48 months, whatever you do it. And you can see through the payments, you can see if you paid that much money over 36 months, how much interest will you have paid and how much will you have paid in total to pay back this loan. Then you do it for 48 months and see how much interest you pay in total and how much you've paid in total over the whole life of the loan. And do it for 60 months. You will be astounded at how much extra you pay if you stretch it out in total over 3 years versus 4 years or 5 years or 6 years. And then you may say, well, I can save $5,000 if I just increase my monthly payment by $50 or $60 or whatever it turns out to be. Then you can sit there and say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to tighten my belt a little bit and pay a little bit more because I know in the long run, I'm going to save thousands of dollars. So being a good consumer in the use of your credit, the sooner you can pay things off at the lowest interest you can pay this off will save you a ton of money and consequently will also increase your credit rating. So take that into account. As far as the use of your credit, it's very important to keep good credit to the best that you can. The Fair Credit Reporting Act, because whenever you go to get a loan, the lender will check your credit. And they're governed by the Fair Credit Reporting Act. It's a very detailed and complicated federal law. It was enacted as a safeguard to keep our information private. It can only be given out, your credit report, that is, can only be given out for certain designated purposes. One is with your written permission. Two, if it's to someone who is going to extend credit to you, or for someone who is trying to collect a debt from you. A prospective employer, prospective landlord, someone who needs to review your credit to make sure that you're a good credit risk. Pre-approved credit offerers can go and check credit, but in a more general sense, like they can go out and they can say, okay, we're going to send out a pre-approved credit offer to people who fall within these parameters. Might be own a home, have a credit score of a certain amount, yada, yada, and then they send out the credit report or the pre-approved credit offer. It's kind of a misnomer, pre-approved credit offer. It just means that if you get one of those, you fell within that batch of consumers that the credit offerer was looking for. And you'll always see an asterisk on that offer. And the asterisk goes down to the small print. And the small print says that it's this is an offer. It's still subject to a review of your particular credit. So it's technically not pre-approved. They still have to do a firm credit check to make sure they're going to offer it to you. But under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the person searching for your credit must have a legitimate purpose for getting your credit. In other words, I can't just go and look up somebody's credit. I just can't. I have to have a legitimate reason for it. That's protected by law. If you get an adverse determination under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, if you get an adverse determination, in other words, the credit officer says, sorry, you're declined. We're not going to give you that credit card. We're not going to give you that loan. You have the right to get a free copy of your credit report if you order it within 60 days of the credit rejection. You should get notice that you have not been approved. So then you have the right and get notice that you have, when in that rejection letter, it should say you're entitled to a free copy of your credit report. You have the right to challenge any inaccurate information that is contained in your credit report. So notify the credit reporting agency, all three of them. Notify the creditor that has listed inaccurate information on your credit report. And generally, the credit reporting agency has 60 days to investigate and determine whether or not that inaccurate item that's on your credit report is valid. If not, it must come. If they can't confirm that it's accurate, it must come off. In other words, if they can't confirm it or not confirm, they can't get an opinion one way or the other, they must take it off. It's got to be a actual proof that it is a valid charge, or it has to come off. Once we have credit, we use it. And let's say we have some issues related to our credit, and therefore we get contacted that a debt is outstanding and there's someone trying to collect it. So a debt collector comes in. There's also federal law that governs collection of debt. There's state laws as well, but federal laws is called the Fair Debt Collection Act. Suppose you have a problem paying someone back. You first of all have an obligation to pay people back. That just goes without saying. You have that obligation to pay it back. But if you don't pay it back, you still have certain rights. And those rights are covered by the Fair Debt Collection Act. Those collecting debts must act fairly to those who owe the money. You have the right not to be subject to harassment and abuse related to the collection of a debt. Debt collectors can only contact you between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. They can't contact you at work if they know it bothers you or your employer. You notify them that that is the case, they must stop. They can only contact neighbors and other third parties, family members, if they cannot locate you. And if they do contact some third party, they cannot tell the third party what they're being contacted for. I know I've been contacted sometimes for someone that to say, do you know so-and-so? Because I'm involved in the business, I know the reason why they're calling me or have a good idea why they're calling me, but they can't tell me. So the only reason they can contact somebody is to locate you. And if you say, let's say you get contacted and you say, I don't know that person. I'm sorry, I don't have any contact with them. I don't have any contact information. That's it. Once they've contacted me, they can't keep contacting me. They can't contact me and say, hey, no, you know, your neighbor is a deadbeat. Your neighbor, do you know your neighbor owes X number of dollars? They cannot say that is a violation of federal law to say that. So if you get that call, it says, we're trying to locate so-and-so. Do you know how to locate them? It's probably a pretty good chance that it's a debt collector trying to locate the person. The other thing is those of you that may owe a debt collector, if they know and can contact you, it is against the law to be contacting other people, because the only reason they can contact the third parties is to try to locate you. If they already know where you are, they can't be contacting other people. And if you're hearing they're calling other people, then it is, if they know how to locate you, it is illegal to not contact you. So what I would tell people is if you get into a bind, can't pay your bills, you have a debt collector contacting you, I would say to you, don't hide. Let them know that you are there. You cannot be arrested for owing a debt. And so that's another thing that they can't do. Prohibited practices or threats of violence, threats that you're going to be arrested. You cannot be arrested for a debt. If they say that to you, that's a violation. It's a prohibited practice under the Fair Debt Collection Act. They can't make threats that they don't intend to keep. They could threaten you to sue you or things like that. As a practical matter, if you owe a $50 debt and somebody is hounding you, a debt collector is hounding you, we're going to sue you, there's a very good chance that they're violating Federal Debt Collection Act law, because they would be making a threat they do not intend to keep. The expenses associated with going ahead and suing you are probably far in excess of what it would be to collect a $50 debt. And so they're probably making threats that they don't intend to keep. But we'll save that for another day. They can't imply that they're attorneys or affiliated with attorneys unless they are actually attorneys. And the same thing with government officials or law enforcement. They can't send you papers that look like legal forms, like they're summons and complaint or something like that, when they are not. And again, they cannot threaten you with arrest. There is no such thing as an arrest for an outstanding debt. You can report any such abuses of the Debt Collection Act to our office. It also, under the Fair Debt Collection Act, it affords people a private right of action so that they could actually sue to collect the fees for violating the Debt Collection Act. So you do have rights even if you do owe the debt, and don't be scared or intimidated into doing something that you wouldn't otherwise do. Couple other things, just to be a wise consumer related to credit. One are credit repair companies. Be very careful about credit repair companies or debt settlement companies. Sometimes you'll see ads on television that say, oh, if you owe more than $10,000 in debt, contact us and we will assist you in getting it resolved. And then you have the person say, I owe all this money and all of a sudden I hired this company and they did great and they knocked thousands and thousands of dollars off what I owed. Just be careful with those companies that are advertising. They're, it costs money to advertise. They have to make a ton of money in order to pay for those types of advertising. There are local not-for-profit entities that you can go to if you get into a bind with your credit. Get behind in your debts. They're very, very legitimate local entities. I mean, Cornell Cooperative Extension puts on consumer credit programs that you can sign up for, give you an idea of how to properly use credit, how to keep your credit good. Those are good programs. I know that there are credit counseling agencies that may be able to assist people. I would check local to see what assistance can be provided to you for that. Be careful about these out-of-state companies and private companies who advertise on television. They can be quite expensive and they may not be successful. The debt settlement business is a model that really you can do yourself. Here's what a debt settlement company will do. What they will do is they'll say, start paying us a monthly amount and we will take care of all your creditors for you. They always are, they make more money, they make enough money if the debts are significant. Like they probably won't take if you owe somebody $1,000, it's just not worth it to them. So they're usually looking for credit card debt that's in excess of like $10,000. So what they'll do is a lot of your credit card debt is interest payments. If you haven't been able to keep up, you owe all kinds of money and interest is killing you and you can't pay the thing off. So what they'll do is they'll say, okay, pay us a monthly amount, say $200 a month, and we'll assist in taking your credit. Your debts on, and it's more than $10,000. What they do is they take your $200 a month, and let's say you have 5 credit cards, and they totals $15,000 for all. What they'll do is they'll take the $200, and once you've built up enough of a pool, they'll say, okay, this one creditor is owed, I'll just grab it, $2,000. And let's say they've accumulated $200 a month, they've accumulated $800, $1,000, $600. Get to a point in time where they'll get on the phone and they'll call the creditor and say, hey, look, you're owed $2,000. A lot of that is interest. I'll give you a lump sum of, let's say you've paid $1,000. We'll give you a lump sum of $600 to pay off that debt. Hey, what is it? A bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. And the credit issuer may say, okay, fine, we'll take the $600. We'll take care of it. Well, you've given the debt settlement company $1,000. They just paid off your debt for $600 and they've put $400 in their pocket. And that's one of the debts. Well, in the meantime, the other credit issuers, the 4 other ones, are not getting paid anything. Your credit is going down the tubes. And then maybe they'll approach another creditor after a certain pot is built up and they'll pay that one. Again, there's 3 creditors that haven't been paid and you'll still continue to get the dunning letters. Just because you're paying this debt settlement company doesn't mean those credit issuers aren't going to come after you and sue you for the debt. There's nothing to say that those credit issues aren't going to tell your debt settlement company, I'm not taking $600. And then they're still owed the money. So the debt settlement model is the debt settlement company hopes to get enough money from you to pay off that debt, not in the full amount. And that you'll think, oh, wow, I got rid of this. I paid $1,000. I got rid of a $2,000 debt with the $1,000. But really, if you had negotiated with your own credit issuer and said, I have a lump sum of money, my credit is bad, I haven't worked in a while, I got $600 for you. Take it or leave it. We'll pay it in full. They may take it. They may not. But you're keeping the $400, not the debt settlement company. So that's how the model works. Some people don't want to get involved in it. Some people want to hire somebody to do that. That's why I suggest that you talk to a local not-for-profit consumer counseling entity that services your area that might be able to give you some assistance and guidance on how, one, you might be able to do it yourself, or two, guidance on what can be done at that particular point in time. Just be very careful. The other thing is about these credit repair companies and debt settlement companies. If they're engaged to settle a debt for you, they cannot take their fees up front. In other words, they can't take their fee until they settle the debt with you. What was happening at first is these debt settlement companies were taking, that $200, they'll say, we'll use our example again. You have a $2,000 debt, you pay $200 a month, and they're going to approach your credit issuer with a lump sum at some point in time to pay it off. What they were doing is that first $200 payment you made went immediately in the debt settlement company's pocket. So in other words, you had nothing in your kitty that could be offered to the credit company. Then they take the second month, $400. They've already been paid. They haven't done anything for you yet, but they've already been paid. And it isn't until after that second month or third month, after they've got their money, that they start taking your money and accumulating this pool. They can't do that. They can't collect their fee until after it's over with. So they'd have to wait, theoretically, they'd have to wait until the whole pot is up to $1,000. They contact your credit issuer. They settle it for $600 or $800. Let's say they settle for $800. They can keep the $200 because you've paid them $1,000. They can keep the $200 as long as they pay the $800 on to the credit issuer. So that's kind of it in a nutshell on credit repair agencies. Be very careful and know who you're dealing with. Advanced fee, another thing is called advanced fee loan scams, and that's where there's false promises of low interest rates, and they're often bogus and disappear after you send the money. In other words, they say, "Hey, look pay me money and I can get you a loan." Don't ever do that. Don't ever pay money to get a loan up front. It also will create identity theft issues that we talked about earlier, because if we think we're getting a loan, pay $200 and they're going to get us a $5,000 loan, what do you expect to have to do to get a loan? Name, address, social security number, credit, bank account information, employment information, those sorts of things. You give those out to this person, plus you paid them $200. You don't know what they're going to do with that personal information, and oftentimes they're a scam and they run away. Be very careful about unauthorized billing, where there's an auto deductions from your bank accounts. Keep track and make sure of your bank accounts to make sure that there's no unauthorized withdrawals. Keep track of the account. Cross-check all of your statements with your payments. The area that I would suggest that's the most appropriate nowadays is with those automatic payments that you sign up for over the internet. So let's say you have a credit card. So your credit card you've tied into your bank account so that every month all the credit card company does is just take the money out of your bank account. We tend to let our guard down in those cases and just let it go as it goes. Check your credit card bill. Make sure that what's on that credit card bill is yours, and make sure that the amount that's coming out of your bank account for the automatic payment is what's supposed to go out to pay that particular debt. If we do these sorts of things, we'll go a long way toward protecting our credit. Get copies of your credit reports every year. review your bank statements and your credit card statements when they come every month, as soon as they come. The sooner you can take care of the problem, the less likely it is that it's going to blow up into a much bigger thing. If you do that, you will be a good consumer and protect your credit. If anybody has any questions regarding credit and credit-related items, I'd be glad to answer those for you. I'll send it back to Sandy to see if there are any. Otherwise,
Great.
Please join us back at our consumer issue program each month so that we can keep you advised as to what's going on out there.
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, Mike. Thanks, and thanks to those who joined us today for this presentation. Mr. Danaher will be back with us a week later than usual on Thursday, February 17th at 11 a.m. with a program on scams targeting senior citizens. You can find the Zoom link on the event listing on our website at ccetompkins.org/events. Thank you again.